Albert Einstein had a photo of this man in his office. For some time they were close friends with Ada Lovelace. Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, awarded him a Grace and Paper House in Hampton Court Palace to recognize his scientific accomplishments. We rarely mention his name, though we could have never reached the world we're used to if not for this man and a couple of people he met as a teenager. The journey started in what then was a rural suburb of London, in autumn of the year 1791. It was not even a year since his parents had moved here from Cumbria in the north of England for the father to find a better job as a blacksmith. But when the boy was a year and a half, France declared war on Great Britain. There were no military operations on the mainland of Great Britain until 1797, when the Battle of Fishguard in Wales took place, but hardly could these obstacles positively add to the family's well-being. The boy learned basics of reading, writing and counting at a church school, naturally by the Bible, practically the only book the family had at home. And at this point his formal education ended. The child had zero chances to enter any other school because of the poverty. By that time the family had moved from the Newington Baths and settled a couple of streets to the right from the Baker Street. The boy tried to earn money by delivering morning and afternoon newspapers, and one of the places he regularly visited was a bookstore. Mike couldn't afford any of the books, but started to use the store as a reading room. He quickly found scientific literature the most captivating for himself and started to make notes and copy some texts and drawings. George Ribot, the man who was buying and selling books there, noticed the interest and determination of the teenager and offered him to become an apprentice, a position meant for 7 years. For the 14-year-old Mike, it meant both a way to get money and a chance to discover the world by reading, so he agreed. The guy was carefully reading each book he would receive for binding, and when he was already 19, he started attending Monday evening scientific lectures, which luckily took place in the next street. He made another volume of notes during these lectures, and when Ribot showed the bound book to his customer, William Dance, one of the founders of the Royal Philharmonic Society, the man was absolutely amazed and decided to present Mike with 4 tickets to the upcoming lectures on chemistry. The lectures were organized at the Royal Institution, and the speaker was going to be Humphrey Davy, one of the professors there. Mike attended the lectures, and of course he put down certain notes, then added some drawings and bound a new book. David Ricketts would then use this book as a reference to the experiments during a lecture by the Royal Institution in 2022. It's 1812. Michael is 21 and his apprenticeship has gone to its end. The young man tried to find a job, while the one he wished to have the least was a bookbinder. He knew how to do binding well, but was eager to deal with science and ready to take the lowest possible position. He tried to reach the president of the Royal Society with his query, but there was no interest for him at the moment. At some point, he decided to send his notes from the Humphrey Davy's lecture to Davy himself. The professor was astonished by the quality of content and the binding, and soon offered him to work as a binder for the Royal Institution. Far from a dream job, it still led Michael closer to the scientific community, so he took the offer. During the following month, Davy himself was injured in an experiment, and one of the assistants at the institution was fired because of a fight, so Sir Humphrey Davy appointed Michael as an assistant. In autumn of the same year, Davy took his assistant to the tour around Europe. So while visiting France, Italy, and Belgium, apart from dealing with scientific issues, the young man was always paying attention to how bookbinding was done there and how people treated books. Nevertheless, scientific work would soon take all his time. As a chemist, he would discover some new substances and determine composition of some recently discovered by other scholars. He also reported that the extremely small particles of a metal, the term nanoparticles didn't exist then, differ in properties from the bulk metal. And while his colleague was coining new terminology, Michael was doing his best to popularize the chemical terms in his works. As a physicist, he would be the first to notice some peculiar details of how a needle and a wire behave when close to a magnet supplied with a current. This would help to establish the whole concept of electromagnetic field and encourage creation of an electric motor and electric generator. He would start carrying out experiments in electric lighting for lighthouses, while in 50 years, which Michael would not see, Savoy Theatre in London would become the first public building fully lit inside by electricity. As a man who possessed profound knowledge about materials and substances, he investigated explosions in coal mines and recommended ventilation to be installed to avoid the incidents. He served as an advisor to the National Gallery on the ways to preserve their art collections. He concerned about the water and air pollution. He also studied the industrial pollution in Swansea and the condition of the River Thames. The only thing he refused to do was to advise the British government on the production of chemical weapons for use in the Crimean War. Remember what happened when he was a kid. A fellow of the Royal Society, at the age of 34 he would become director of the laboratory of the Royal Institution, and 6 years later a special position would be created for him, which implied Michael having it for life and without lectureship obligations. However, this scientist's way began with scientific lectures he as a bookbinder apprentice managed to visit. Thus, Michael Faraday aimed to present science to public, which at those times was amazed by the ideas of communication with spirits, seances, and animal mesmerism, and involve young minds into it. So aside from sharing his experiments with fellow scientists, when he was 34 he started a tradition of Christmas lectures at the Royal Institution. He himself hosted 19 of these lectures, while the tradition is still ongoing and the brightest scientists, including but not limited to the Nobel Prize laureates, are yearly invited to share their knowledge in an entertaining form. Michael Faraday could have received his Nobel Prize, but Alfred Nobel was just receiving patent for his dynamite in the year of the Faraday's death, and the Nobel Prize was first awarded 5 years after the Nobel's death. Michael Faraday could have been knighted and present himself as Sir Michael Faraday, but he preferred to remain plain Mr. Faraday to the end, and rejected the title on religious grounds. Michael Faraday could have been a common bookbinder, but he decided to try to get engaged with science and created a new current there.